Hi. Today we are here to talk about savoring the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're just gonna have like a little chit chat.
Yeah. We have a slide.
Yeah.
A slide. But yeah,
That helps Steven to feel more formal when he has a slide.
absolutely. Very serious stuff.
Very serious.
Very, you must take savoring the moment very seriously. But yeah, so savoring the moment.
So I think before we go into this,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
absolutely.
totally interrupt you.
Go for it. You want me to go back?
You don't have to.
Oh, I'll go back.
Okay. No, I just think that just in life, right? And then in our work life, you know, lots of going on. We have a lot going on. But no, I think that so savoring the moment and just really being able to pause and be mindful and in the moment about even the little things is important. But what kind of brought this idea to us to chat about on the podcast today was that as business owners, especially ABA business owners, since that's what we do,
That's what we do.
that we have a lot on our plate, right? And especially when we're growing a business and we're managing, employees and we have clients and, all of that, right? We have goals, right? And we have projects and we have things we're working towards. And sometimes we don't take time to savor those wins, to savor those moments, to like enjoy or even just sit with for a minute the things that we finish before moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when, like, if you're building a company, even if you're just starting out, I mean, just taking that step of saying, I'm going to do this, can be very scary, overwhelming. And so if you're taking those steps, no matter how small they are, that's a big deal. And so you should take some time and just, appreciate where you're at, and look at where I moved, look at the way I moved forward from yesterday, right? And just appreciate where you're at, I think is important. For me, that's something that does not come naturally. And so, I would have my to-do list and it would be in my goals and I would check off the goals and my immediate response would be, well, that wasn't a really good goal or that it wasn't done quick enough or, things like that. And it was very negative. And so having the ability to step back and say, okay, I can hear those negative thoughts, but I can also see what I accomplished, I think is important.
Yeah, it's really big. And not everybody is motivated by their negative self-talk, but
What, really?
from what I hear from others, just people in my groups and other podcasts that I listen to, like inspirational people and like mental health podcasts and all that, all of my fun things I like to listen to grow myself. That seems to be a pretty big majority of us do
Right.
kind of motivate ourselves by
toxic
those
thought.
Yeah,
Internal
negative
dialogue.
Yeah. But too, I think there are others who don't, but even still, no matter what way you think, how you motivate yourself and celebrate your wins and things like that, I think that savoring the moment can be such an important thing to do within for yourself and within your company, and to also to model to your employees and your staff. And I just think it's like it can't hurt, right? It can't hurt. Some people may roll their eyes at it and be like, oh, gratitude, savoring the moment, whatever. Come on, let's move on. Let's just get things done that we have to get done and just keep moving forward. You got that thing done, but there's 3 other things you got to get done, But I don't know. There's just something to be said about savoring the moment and taking that minute, even if it doesn't have to be big. It can just be just acknowledgement of, hey, I did that thing. That thing was really hard for me at the time, and yeah, maybe it took me a little longer than I had hoped to get it done, but I got it done and here I am. And versus like, okay, I got that done now. I have to hurry up and get this next thing done. I don't know. It just, I guess it's the intention here is just to share this idea because maybe some people haven't heard of this idea or they haven't thought about bringing it to work with them as an owner to kind of help improve their happiness and satisfaction. Not that it's all about happiness and satisfaction, but like it's nice to be able to enjoy work.
I mean, like when you're dealing with long term, right? Like this is like this isn't a sprint. This is a marathon. Creating a company, right? When you're dealing with these long term goals, right? These are far reaching 5-10 year thing. Having some kind of joy and gratitude certainly helps. Like it's because if all you're motivating yourself with, is how terrible you are, and how you should be better and how you should have done it quicker. I think that can be very unhealthy and unhelpful. At least that's been my experience.
Because even if it does motivate you to get the next thing done, like how do you feel coming out?
Oh,
of
horrible,
it,
horrible. Like that was the only way I motivated myself was through this toxic self-talk, right? Like do better, you have to get it faster, you have to do more. Why can't you do it quicker, right? It's exhausting. And then the only way that you can motivate yourself is by making that toxic self-talk even worse, right? Like how terrible can my thoughts get that will actually motivate me to do the thing that I need to. So when you can take a step back and say, wow, I did this really hard thing, like you said, it doesn't matter. Like, hey, I got payroll done right on time this week, right? Yay me. It didn't like that just in itself, just taking that moment, it's going to help. It's going to help motivate you. And just taking that, just taking a moment and saying, I did this hard thing. This is really hard for me. And I did it, versus immediately step into, hey, dummy, why couldn't you do this thing a little bit quicker, right? I think it just having a different perspective will shift things, and it will allow you to be a little bit more positive. And again, like I said, in those, at least for me, as a reformed, toxic thinker, I think that it just makes it easier to continue moving through these really difficult, hard, long-term goals.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how do we savor the moment? So we're gonna go through just like some quick points on like how to savor the moment, or like what's involved in savoring the moment. So the first one is like having like gratitude for the small things. And so though the big picture here is talking about savoring the moment, like as we're making steps towards our progress, or at least as maybe sometimes that's just not making a step back, or we have made a step back,
embrace the step back,
but we're here and we've recognized it, and now we're making those steps, like taking the steps to move forward. Like it could, it's like however it shows, like however you choose for it to show up in your life, but the first thing is to having gratitude for the small things. And so that can just be not related to your to-do list. It can, and your projects and things, it can even just be, it can be unrelated, but it's just working on training your brain to look for, like, to have gratitude for the little things. Like, wow, I really love the way this pen writes. The ink is really smooth. Or that coffee that I had this morning just really tasted perfect, and I enjoyed the moment I had sitting there and quiet, drinking it. Or my child coming downstairs and greeting me with a big smile. Or it can be, the idea is like it doesn't even have to be a big thing. And it's not like, oh, I'm grateful for my family. Well, I'm sure you are.
Right.
I'm grateful for my staff. I'm sure you are. But like, what are the little teeny tiny things? So if we're training our brain to like look at these things throughout the day, throughout the whole day, not just like a big, like looking back at the end of the day at one big thing. And there's nothing wrong with that too, but just looking for all of those, like being like we talked to our now 8-year-old about like being a detective, right? Like, be a detective. What can we be grateful for? What can we, choose to like focus in on today?
And it may be easier to have gratitude for that coffee than have gratitude for that thing on your to-do list. If that thing on your to-do list immediately elicits negative self-talk, right? So like working up to that point may be easier, right? Wow, that was a really good coffee, right? Like maybe that's something that isn't as triggering to those negative self-talk, and then you can start practicing with that. Because for me, when I started practicing gratitude, I couldn't focus on my achievements. I had to focus on other people's achievements, and I could be grateful for their achievements versus being grateful for mine. It was just too difficult for me. It was like there was no opportunity, there was no space there. When I started practicing this, it would immediately, like, it was so natural, right? It was just a muscle memory, I guess, basically, of, okay, let's throw in the toxic self-talk, right? Like it was just, woof, it was just immediate. So, I think practicing on little things that may be unwork related, like not work related, could be a helpful starting point.
It could even be within your work day.
Yeah, it could.
But it doesn't, I guess the idea here is it can be anything.
Right.
Just even, man, these jeans are comfy. I don't know, right? Here we're in Canada, and it's my first spring in Canada. And man, April was a long month because I'm used to it already having flowers bloomed and grass green and warm weather, and pulled out my flip-flops. And here it's May now, and I've pulled out my short sleeve warm sweater, and having to look very hard for signs of spring. And so Stephen will tell you, as obnoxious as it might have been to those around me, during the month of April, I made the choice. I did. I mean, I was like, I'm looking for spring, because I was feeling really down and out. Like, this sucks. Like, the grass is brown. Like, we hid Easter eggs. And I'm sure those of you who are in a colder climate, like, this might just be normal for you, but we hid Easter eggs. And I'm like, how do you hide Easter eggs when there are no leaves on trees and bushes, and there's no, like, everything's brown? Like, so I found some white Easter eggs, and we hid white Easter eggs in the snow. So yeah, but from there, like, I just started looking hard for signs of spring. I was like, oh, look, there's a little tiny bud coming up from, one of the bulbs. Spring. Like, there's, I feel like a little bit of warmth in the air today, or the sun feels actually warm on my face, or, oh wow, I hear that bird. I haven't heard that bird all winter, and just like spring, right? And so I started calling it out, and then my family started pointing out signs of spring to me. And so I kind of like was thinking about, like, knowing that we were going to do this podcast, I was like thinking about that. I was like, wow, I was kind of unhappy. It was out of my control. I can't do anything about the weather.
Right.
And maybe perhaps I could go somewhere else, but then I would still come back here and it wouldn't be quite summer yet. So let's find signs of spring. And then through that, the others around me. So I was like thinking, like, okay, as we're like showing gratitude for the small things, even if sometimes we're able to voice those out loud or in emails or something to our staff, then just through example, not even talking about it, but maybe we can spread some of that joy and gratitude, and like maybe they'll start coming to you with, oh, spring.
Right. And I mean, you could switch that very easily over to work, right? Like, what are a lot of things are out of your control, right? Like how quickly insurance pays you, right? Like, issues with employees being sick or clients getting sick or, things like this that kind of are out of your control. So there's a lot that we need to embrace and be okay with, even if we're not okay with them. But what can we look at to find those little things that, we are in our control and that we can be grateful for.
Right. Not that I'm living in some fantasy land, right? Like it's still cold outside. It's still
Right.
gray and yucky, and I still am wearing my winter clothes and my coat and my hat most mornings when I go out.
Yeah.
And it's reality. It is what it is. But yet I can choose to see these other things and at least have like little moments of excitement and joy about seeing spring. So it kind of goes into this next, like, look for the positive in every moment. By here, we're not meaning like the whole like
Toxic
positive, like, oh, everything's sunshine and roses. No, like it's not.
Right.
And I feel like it's important here for me to just say really quick, like, especially in the workplace, like, and we've talked about this in other podcasts and like talks before, but I'm not saying that like that only positive is allowed. Like,
Right.
all feelings are allowed. Of course, you have to bring your feelings to work, and the way that you have to still be professional and follow the guidelines and regulations and all of that, but you can still feel sad or feel some of those other emotions, and that's okay. And so, acknowledging those other things, but also like looking for the positive.
Yeah, I mean, what is the saying? It's I'll see it when I believe it, right? And reversing that. So when I believe it, I will see it. And I think that's kind of what you said. Okay, my intention is I am going to find the spring, right? I'm going to find it. And so you're like, okay, I know it's spring. I believe it. And then you started seeing it, right? And I think that the more you look at it that way, from that perspective, that there is gratitude, I can find little pieces of gratitude every day, then you'll start to see it a little bit easier, right? Because you're looking for it. And I think that, like, you have the choice. You can, right? Like, if you're anything like I found I used to be, right? You can you can certainly motivate yourself with negative self-talk and find the negative in every situation, or you can look at the positive in any situation. Right? You can make that choice. What sounds better, right? What makes it easier? And so I think even just a little bit of positivity is better than 100% negativity. And so if we can change our perspective to start looking for the positive in every moment, again, wow, that, like, I very much dislike that it's going to take me 20 weeks to get this check from this funder. But at least the claim has been processed, right? And at least I know that it's coming.
Right.
So
It's kind of like wrapping up some like growth mindset in that as well. Is like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but like, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard. I can do hard things.
Right.
I have my team, I have my support. Like, who can I pull
Right.
to, like, let's work together on this? Or, who can I reach out to? Or, this is a hard thing for me. I'm not sure how to do this yet, but I'm taking this step in the right direction.
Right.
Or just the fact that I'm stuck and I don't know where to go next, and
Yeah.
I'm asking for help. Like,
Right.
look at me.
Right.
I'm being brave. I'm asking for help. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just having that mindset, not that you have to be happy all the time, but that you're recognizing where you are,
Right.
but then also trying to look at the positive. Or, like, I know this is about savoring the moment, but sometimes, like, setting that timer and complaining and whining and
Absolutely.
crying and like letting that out.
Yep.
And then saying, okay, it's time to take a step forward. What do I need? What do I need to be able to do this?
And then, if, like, what I find helpful is if you can express gratitude for others. I think it, again, Just like it was much easier when I started looking for gratitude, seeing the gratitude of others' accomplishments. If I can express gratitude to others, I find that much easier. I feel like it's a, it doesn't immediately respond in negative self-talk. I can see, wow, like look at that thing that they did, that was amazing. And it's just easier to do. And then I can take that in a little bit. Where if I, especially when I started, if I started trying to force myself to be grateful for the things that I like, forcing yourself to do anything is probably not a great idea. But if I tried to, okay, now you're going to sit down and be grateful for 5 minutes, it just, it immediately caused that negative self-talk, right? And it was very difficult. It did not feel good. So I think that for people that, you're, this is an unnatural place to find yourself. Just know that you're not going to get this perfect every time, right? I think that this is, hey, if you can do it once this week, great job.
Takes practice.
Yeah.
Practice.
If this is not natural for you, you're building muscle, right? You're building a new way of doing it. You're not going to get this right every time, and that's okay too. But practicing and continuing to try, I think, it's super helpful. I feel lighter. Like if I look at my experience maybe 4 years ago when I started my mindfulness journey, I guess you could say, super stressed out, super burnt out, very depressed. And now I just feel lighter. It's not all perfect and sunshine and rainbows, but it's easier. It feels a little bit lighter. And I feel a little bit healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels better.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that, right? And so, like, I guess another thing I'll say on this, like, and we're kind of getting off on the rails, but like my concern when I started, when I started my attempt to not motivate myself with negative self-talk was, how am I going to motivate myself, right? Like, if I'm all happy about whatever happens and everything's positive, how am I going to motivate myself to get my tasks done, my to-do list done, if I'm not pushing myself with negative self-talk? I am still as highly motivated as I was. I'm still doing what I want to do, and I'm still working on my goals, but it's just not as stressful. It's not as it just feels better.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that kind of brings us to our last thing and like wrap it up for today.
And hopefully this isn't a therapy session.
We're not therapists,
right.
but if we can share, we like to share ideas that work for us.
Yeah.
And that's really all the podcast is about, especially these like chit chat ones when it's just the two of us. Just sharing what works for us and what we find helpful, hoping that maybe it will help someone else to feel a little bit better. I don't know. But yeah, and if it is a therapy, say, hey, like, the more you're willing to share with others and be vulnerable, I mean, maybe it will help somebody, you know?
And I think that is, again, like, if you are willing to share your gratitude for your accomplishments, others are more willing to share as well. And it does allow some vulnerability, right? And even sharing like some near wins, or almost like, hey, this thing that I was working on did not go at all the way I thought it would. I failed miserably, but look at what I learned, right? That's another way that you can kind of look at the positive. This was a learning opportunity. And again, that certainly did not come natural for me. But it just makes it easier to get through those hard things if you can look at it from a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah, so the last thing of kind of bringing this to a close today is do things that bring you joy and a sense of purpose. And so, that can be hobbies, that can be, like looking at your values and making sure that you're tapping into, your values, on a regular basis, like if something that's important to you is being out in nature and, making sure that you know, you're doing something, taking a walk or, having some time outside or, you're working on that project that gives you a sense of purpose. Really anything. I think the first step is being curious and figuring out, if you don't already know for yourself what that is,
Right.
kind of figuring out, okay, what brings me joy? What are my values? What hobbies do I enjoy? What gives me a sense of purpose? Maybe volunteering, helping out others, or, it could be anything. But doing that,
Knitting, like,
yeah,
like, who
hobbies. Yeah, I
knows?
mean, like, and so like that could be in your own personal life, or it is in your own personal life, and then maybe even as a team, looking at how can we bring some of this together, for like a team building event, or spend 30 minutes of a training session or a meeting doing something that could bring a sense of purpose and joy to you guys as a team too, or each person sharing something that brings them joy and a sense of purpose with others in the team. So I mean, I'm like, the sky's the limit as far as that's concerned, but I think that's also something super important to keep in mind.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, at least I think this was the last thing I'm going to say, is like, this is really, it's very difficult, right? Like, there are going to be ups and downs, and you can say, oh, well, one day, when everything's calm and everything is completed on my list, I'll appreciate what I've got, right? I'll be grateful. I'll savor the moment when I'm on the beach and all the stress is gone. And my experience, there's always going to be something stressful, right? Like, even as you improve your practice, the baseline for what you would consider stressful may go down, but as it goes up and down, that stress comes back, that overwhelmed feeling comes back, that burnout comes back. And so there's always going to be something there. And so practicing this now and finding the gratitude and taking that time to just say, look at what I did. It may not be perfect, but look at what I've accomplished. I think it's super helpful. It will only benefit you and your team, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so as you guys listen or watch this, feel free to comment and let us know, like,
what brings you gratitude? How do you savor the moment?
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. And if you, as we ask at the end of most podcasts, if you enjoyed this, please, subscribe and
review. It really helps. Yeah. It does. And, we can provide free content like this because of the support we get from our members. So if you if you feel like becoming a ABA Business Leader member, we would greatly appreciate that. You can find more information on our website, www.3pisquared.com, and go to courses. But yeah, we're here if you need our help, and have a wonderful day.